This episode is sponsored by W Wellness. I started working with W Wellness a few weeks ago, and I can't begin to tell you how much better I've been feeling. My energy's up, my joints are less achy, and the difference in my eye health has been phenomenal. I just feel like myself again. W Wellness is the UK's first expert-led wellness platform. I got paired with a real nutritionist who really listened, asked the right questions, and helped build a plan that worked for me. Everything's tailored, simple, and science-backed, and honestly, it's been the first thing that's actually stuck. I'm still on my 12-week journey and I'll keep sharing how it's going. But if you're feeling a bit off and you don't know where to start, this is it. Go to w-wellness.co.uk. It might just be the reset that your body has been asking for. Hi, welcome back. I'm Helen, therapist, author, and your host of this podcast I don't think we talk enough about. And today I'm delighted to welcome Nedra Glover Tawwab. She is an incredible therapist based in the States. If you don't know her, have a look at her Instagram. She has nearly 2 million followers. A lot of her work focuses on dysfunctional families. This is a topic that comes up a lot on my Instagram, questions in my DMs all the time. So I invited Nedra because she really is an expert in managing dysfunctional families. In fact, we talk a lot about her book, Drama Free, and it's one I recommend to so many people who are struggling with dysfunction. And in today's episode, we talk about what dysfunction is, the impact it has on us as adults from childhood, the relationship we have with ourselves as a result, and also the relationship we have with others. She gives some brilliant advice on how to work with it. Plenty of information for you to reflect on, think about, wonderful therapeutic insight, and we answer so many of your questions too. It's a really heartfelt, raw conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Nedra, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. And as with so many of my guests, I meet you through Instagram. And then it's so wonderful to meet you in person here because I followed you forever. And your account, for anyone who doesn't know you, is such a beautiful resource on so many aspects of therapy. But there's a big feel of the way you help people through family relationships and also boundaries. The two go so closely together, don't they? They really do.
They do. I would say that Set Boundaries, Find Peace, my first book, definitely inspired the second book, Drama Free, because one of the big questions was, well, what about my family? And even though in, Set Boundaries, Find Peace, I talked about family relationships, it wasn't enough because family relationships just have so much nuance that needed to be its own thing.
I think it's really important that you talk about the nuance of dysfunctional families, relationships, because, you and I are both seeing it in our communities, aren't we? It's so evident, it's so abundant. And yes, your book, I brought it along today, Drama Free, a guide to managing unhealthy family relationships. And I thought that was really poignant, your subtitle there, your byline, because so often we're guided towards trying to achieve healthy family dynamics. And sometimes, as you and I both know, that sadly isn't possible. It sadly isn't as easy as that, is it? We need to work with the unhealthy relationships that are in our lives.
Yeah, I think there is this assumption that we can make every single relationship healthy, and we have to develop our tolerance for how many unhealthy relationships we can have and how we can show up in those relationships. I don't think we need 10 unhealthy relationships, but maybe you have mostly healthy relationships or one or two where you accept that this person is not changing, or you accept that this is a relationship that I can't have, but this idea that I can make this work if I do all the work or if I try to change them, it's not real, because you can be as healthy as you want to be, but if you're dealing with some people, whatever you're doing may not be enough.
Such a good point. And even as you said that, I felt the tension in my chest with that pressure of trying everything, trying to make it work, because
Mhm.
fundamentally we all want those relationships to be healthier. But sometimes it's so out of actually this is a point that I see a lot and feel a lot. Sometimes it really is out of our control.
Yes.
So, Nedra, I think it might be really helpful if, just for the people listening, to give some sort of background or definition to what what is dysfunction? What is a dysfunctional family? Big question. Sorry.
It is a big question. I would say a dysfunctional family is where there is a unhealthy pattern of persistent behaviors. Unhealthy could be gossiping. Unhealthy could be addiction. Unhealthy could be abandonment. Unhealthy could be teasing. Like the what is unhealthy is the thing that has the nuance, right? Because we tend to, in a lot of books I've read on family dysfunction, it focuses on if your parent is a substance abuser, if your siblings do such and such, like it's one particular thing. But in actuality, it's what is the problem that's persistent that has been disrupting the fabric of the relationship over a period of time. It could be your parents speaking poorly about the other parent to you. It could be your parent having a codependent relationship with one of your siblings. It could be that there are financial issues in the family where people, borrow money and never pay it back. Like that can be a dysfunction. So the dysfunction, it really depends on the pattern that's persistent in the relationship.
Thank you for that. And as you're talking, you can really get a sense of how broad the term is.
Mm-hmm.
It's so broad, isn't it? As you say, it can be from substance abuse, it could be from a caregiver having mental health problems, it could be chronic health problems in the family, it could be, and actually we'll come to this in the second part of the podcast with questions from my Instagram community around generational trauma
Mm-hmm.
and actually what's behind the behavior. And we always go back, don't we? We can't help but look at, let's keep going back, not in terms of nulling their behavior or excusing their behavior, but for at least gaining some understanding so that you can let go of perhaps guilt and blame and responsibility, that it's not you. It's not you.
Yeah, I think sometimes when we have conversations with our family members about what's happening in the family, for instance, you may say, I have a problem with the way that you speak to me, and you have that conversation, and the person doesn't take any accountability for that. And they feel like, well, this is how you deserve to be spoken to. This is how I speak. You have to deal with it. That's when it becomes problematic. We're not usually noting anything dysfunctional with things that can be resolved within a family. If we can figure out a way to move through things, we're not really calling it dysfunction. We're only labeling dysfunction when the person is not making any changes in their actions toward us.
I know. And in your book, actually, I will say that I just loved because you open it with a case study.
Mhm.
And I presume it wasn't hypothetical. It was one that you might have changed deep personal details, etc. But what I loved
Mhm.
about you opening with that is you immediately make the reader feel less alone. And so often when we're dealing with dysfunction in our families, people feel so alone in it, don't they? As if it's only my family. And that can be so incredibly isolating for someone. And I loved the way you brought that in from page one.
Yeah, I think with dysfunctional families, there is a bit of shame attached to it because there's this idea that it can't be that bad or you should be able to withstand it. And socially, we have an idea of what parents are.
Mm.
And so when we know that our parent does not fit the mold or the prototype for what a parent should be, we carry that shame of, oh my gosh, like, I don't even want to talk about this thing because I know that this other person's parent is probably like this vision that we have of parents. And unfortunately, it makes you feel very alone, like the silence that you carry when you don't talk about the type of parent or the type of relationship that you have or the type of siblings or grandparents or aunts and uncles. I don't want to just make this about parents, any type of family member. When you don't talk about those things, it increases the loneliness and isolation, because what I found is people are often going through the same thing. If they're not going through it, they know of someone who is. They may be able to offer perspective or comfort that you didn't even know was available through this person until you open up.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean open up in every single situation, but it certainly means you do not have to carry the shame.
Yeah.
I have almost 2 million followers on Instagram, and I get thousands of likes on posts about dysfunctional families, which lets me know that there are so many of us who are going through some of the things that I'm posting about, be it boundary issues, being in dysfunctional families, that there is some similarity. And sometimes it's the most unlikely people. It's celebrities, it's teachers, it's engineers, it's women, it's men, all sorts of people find that this information is helpful because they are also going through it. And we can only find our people by being vulnerable about our situations.
I love the way you said that. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that vulnerability? Because you're so right about the shame. And I love the way you talked about the way we carry that shame, and it's just not ours to carry. And it can be incredibly confronting, can't it, to see other families that on the outward appearance seem like they have it all together, beautiful, healthy relationships. And you're so right. It's dysfunction doesn't have a look, does it? Because we hide it from people. So people can't see what dysfunction looks like in reality because it's behind closed doors.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reading a book about a woman who had a parent who was an alcoholic. And so she never invited people over because she didn't want her friends or anybody to find out that her mom was an alcoholic. And of course, as you might imagine, growing up,
Mm.
she had, really a really terrible time making friends, keeping friends, because there was no vulnerability. People couldn't really get to know her. She had like this little secret box that, she thought she was protecting herself, but it was actually pushing people away.
Yeah, of course it was. And in the pushing away, you don't learn how to form authentic connection, do you? Because
Yeah,
you don't have a blueprint of what an authentic, safe connection feels like or looks like, because you've
yeah.
not had that story within your own systems. So, coming back to the vulnerability, what advice would you give to someone about working with that vulnerability in connection of trying to find those safer relationships?
Well, I think it's always helpful to share in small bites. So not to sit someone down and tell them your life story at one lunch, right? We don't want to do that. But as things come up, to just know I've experienced that.
Yeah.
Or, my dad did X, Y, and Z, to find moments where your story is able to come out and make sense to the person in your life, in particular, your partners,
Mm.
your best friends. Like when you are in serious platonic or romantic relationships, it's helpful for people to know who you are.
Mm.
You don't want them to be shocked, years later, like, oh my gosh, I never knew this was your life, because you've hid everything.
I know.
Because at some point it does become hiding. It's not, oh, I'm just being private. It's like, no, you're hiding your life. We don't know you. We can't get to the core of who you are. There's some secrets in there that we know you have, but we don't even know what they are.
Yeah, I know.
And you can, when you're being vulnerable, here is a really powerful thing. You can give as much detail as you want to. You don't have to go in great detail.
No.
Because it's your story that you're sharing. So you may say something like, someone in my family died by suicide. Maybe you don't say who it was yet because you're not comfortable.
No.
But you get to disclose how much you share. And if they continue to ask a question, well, who was it? I'm not ready to share more, but that's as much as I could say right now.
Absolutely.
That's as much as I could give you right in this moment.
Yeah. And noticing how that feels to that person to receive it and take it back can be such good information about whether you can keep building on that trust, can't it? Because trust can be so incredibly difficult if you've grown up within dysfunction.
Yeah, so finding the people that you can trust, and the way that you do that is by sharing a little bit of information and seeing how they perceive that, allowing them to hold it, and at a later time, maybe sharing a bit more.
Absolutely. I love that. It might be helpful to talk about how does, I know it's another very sweeping question, but just giving a little bit of flavor to how dysfunction in childhood impact yourself as an adult, but also your relationships as an adult. So that's two questions in there really, because your sense of self is incredibly fragile, isn't it?
Mhm.
Or it can be.
It certainly impacts the way that you see boundaries,
Okay.
whether it's with yourself or how other people have them with you.
Yeah.
When sometimes when people put boundaries on us, it's like, oh my gosh, they don't want to be my friend anymore. They didn't call me. They didn't call me back immediately. Sometimes that is our stuff, right? Maybe we were rejected in our family of origin. And so if someone doesn't answer the phone when you call or respond to your text immediately, it feels like, here's this rejection again. When in actuality, they're at work, they're at the grocery store, they can't talk right now. Maybe they're on the other end. And so the boundary of I can't talk can be a really big thing.
Yeah.
Right? Or any boundary that people place on you where it's like offensive to you might be something that you experienced in other relationships, predominantly those childhood relationships. Like, why am I so offended by their boundary, them asking me to give them a call before I stop by, them not always being available to me, them telling me no, that they can't do this thing for me. Why is that so offensive to me? It's worth exploration. Or, sometimes on the opposite end, why is it so hard for me to give any boundaries to people?
Yeah.
Why don't I have any boundaries with people? Why am I the person that's always flexible and just saying yes, and I want people to like me, and I want them to see me as like, this person who's always available to them? Why am I trying to possess that? So I would say boundaries is a big impact. I will also say our ability to be loyal in relationships. And again, I think we, tend to operate in extremes. So sometimes we are too loyal and sometimes we're not loyal enough, right? So we end relationships really quick. Oh no, they were late, that's done. It's like, I'm over this relationship, I'm out of here. Or we stay loyal to people that we should leave.
Yeah.
So when we have those childhood wounds, we sometimes have an issue with loyalty in both directions, of staying for too long or not staying at all and working through anything. Or we have issues with boundaries, or we devalue relationships. We isolate ourselves from people as a protection because we are fearful of people hurting us again. And so when we get into relationships, we're like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I've had to tell so many people who are actually in healthy relationships that this is normal. But sometimes when things get too serious, or people want to be close, or they want to talk to us more than once a week, it's like, oh no, 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 no. They want too much from me, when in actuality, that is normal and that is representative of progress in a relationship. So sometimes we have that anxiety around how to be in relationships. What does this behavior mean that they did? Oh my gosh, I should leave this relationship because I'm starting to feel something.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say our attachment to people becomes impacted. Another thing that, and this is a really big one, is we repeat the patterns. That is the thing that most often shows up in our relationships, whether it is conscious or unconscious. If we are not aware of our stuff and trying to work through it, we certainly repeat whatever that pattern is. And before we know it, we're like our mom, we're like our dad, we're like the other people in our family because we've done nothing to protect ourselves from becoming that way. And we become, you grew up with your parents arguing all the time. Now we're in a relationship that's combative, that's explosive. And we're like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? You haven't learned any communication tools. So if you don't want to do the things that you saw in your home, you don't want to repeat those patterns, you have to do the work not to be that way. And for some of us, that's really hard because we have to get in there and sort of excavate all of that childhood stuff, not in one sitting. I always want to tell people you don't have to do it all in one day. Over time, you can work through some of these things. So don't think, oh my gosh, I have to master everything that ever happened to me. You don't. But if you master one of those things or even master two, that can change your life.
I know.
But some of us aren't paying attention to any of the things.
No, I'm just going to say, what does that work look like? You're so right, because so much of it, and I love the way you said it, so much of it can be unconscious, can't it?
Mm-hmm.
For so long until we suddenly bring in some self-awareness. And that's hard to sometimes connect to, isn't it? That self-awareness.
Yeah, I think being self-aware is really hard because there's a lot of guilt. When I am self-aware, I just recently had an issue with my oldest daughter where I had to think about something and I did, and I apologized. I was like, you know what? I apologize. I didn't know that it was impacting you this way, and I will do better. And I felt awful because I know I'm a good parent, but I mean, just even acknowledging that I could hurt my child. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel terrible. So I know that this statement is not true. I would never do anything to hurt you. That is not possible in a relationship because people will unconsciously hurt you. Even if they're not doing it on purpose with intention, they will hurt you if you are in any long-term relationship. And that hurt could be, hey, you want to watch a movie with me? And they're like, no, that might hurt you. I'm not saying that they're going to stab you or steal from you. I'm saying that they will hurt you in some way. So in me acknowledging like, wow, I hurt this person that I really love in a moment of frustration, I apologize for that and I will do better.
Yeah.
But when you acknowledge that, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm questioning everything I ever knew.
Nedra, but thank you so much for sharing that, because
Yeah.
people assume that as therapists that we've got it all right. We know exactly
Oh my
how to manage
gosh.
relationships. But that isn't the reality, is it? Yes, we have the tools to have, and I love the concept of rupture and repair. We have the tools, don't we? So much healing happens in that putting our hand up and saying, I mucked up and I'm sorry. That repair means so much, doesn't it?
It does. And, I've been a therapist for maybe 17, 18 years now, but I've only been a parent for 11 years.
Yeah.
And I am still learning. And I think in the midst of certain things, there are moments when you're like, oh, therapist goes out the window and full-fledged, like, human brain comes in. And it's like, what is this all over your floor? Like, you can't be a therapist. I'm not a therapist in this moment. I'm a mom with a kid who's not cleaning their room up. I'm sorry, people, but I can't. I say this every day. And when you say something every day, I start to see why the Joker lost his mind. They want me in a straitjacket. So I keep repeating myself. So yeah, sometimes I get, after about 100 repeats of the same thing, that's when I lose it. I'm gonna say 100 repeats. So it's not like 5, it's not 10. It's like 100 of the, and my kids, they act like, no, you wanted me to get my shirt off the floor. It's like, what? Where am I? Yeah,
Brilliant.
so sometimes I can't be, I would say I'm not even a mom. I just I like blank out, like, what is happening right now? Like,
Yeah, I know. Prefrontal cortex flipped off time, hasn't it?
it's,
God.
it's like I'm 5. It's like,
I know.
whoa, no, what just happened?
It's reminding me of transactional analysis and going into child self over adult self. And you can really feel
Yes.
that come in, can't you?
Yes. I feel like I'm being tricked.
Yeah.
I'm like, there is some trick sort of happening here. What is the trick?
What is the trick? What have I missed? What have I missed? But I love the way that you show so beautifully the model for your children that it's okay to muck up, but we can
Mm-hmm.
apologize with that as well, with intention. And for
Mm-hmm.
so many people within living in with a dysfunction family, they never hear that apology.
Oh my gosh.
Never
Never an
come.
apology, never
No.
any accountability, never any recognition that anything has happened. In dysfunctional families, as a matter of fact, it's almost like if you say something about it, you're the bad guy. If you don't just pick up the pieces and move on, but kids experience so much. The first part of my career, I work with kids, and it's very hard to see kids in situations that they can't control and the adults unwilling to repair or even have the conversations. When you think about families divorcing, when you think about abrupt moves, when you think about abuse in family, like all of these things, these conversations are necessary. There are so many parents who will get a divorce and not want to talk to their kids about it as if they're not experiencing it. And so then I have kids coming to therapy like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to see my dad. And you may try to talk to the parent and say, hey, this is something you should talk to them about. And if they don't do it, that becomes a dysfunctional womb. My parent doesn't talk about my feelings with me.
Of course. Of course.
You're starting a pattern that when something big happens in everyone's life, it has to be minimized in their life because you're the adult.
Yeah, of course. And the message that brings to them, Nedra,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes their blueprint as they grow older. And actually, that reminds me, there's a beautiful part in your book it really settled on me, actually, really resonated. And it was about choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt an ease when I read that because so often those people coming from dysfunctional beginnings forget, or not forget, don't realize they have a choice in how they'd like to move forward as an adult. And that can be so empowering where they felt so powerless as a child, as you say. It's beautiful to witness someone realizing that. But
Yeah.
it's a beautiful part of the book.
Well, I'll tell you, I grew up in a household with adults who acted as if they did not have a choice and that things were put upon them and that we couldn't do anything about these things. So early on, I was the kind of kid that asked questions and probably was annoying in my question asking because I was highlighting problems. Like, right? Like,
Thing, yeah. Something was
well, why do they have to stay with us? Like, what so they didn't pay their bill. Like, I was just like asking questions that were probably disruptive to the dysfunction, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, like, why is she talking about this? Like, keep going. And so, in my household, I learned, it's not okay to ask certain questions, or it's not okay to ask certain people questions. It's not okay to ask questions in the moment. Like the question, like the wondering about things needs to be secret, and you have to accept that it is the way it is. People have no control over what they do, and that's it. I didn't realize that you had control until I was a teenager and I actually started to make choices. And I was like, you can actually choose not to smoke. You can choose what you want to do when you become an adult. Whether you want to go to college, you want to get a trade, you want to, there's so many choices. And I can choose who I want to watch my kids.
Yeah.
I don't have to let everyone watch them. I can choose what I want to eat. Like, didn't realize, because so many people were like, no, that's the thing. And you just have to do this thing with this person. And it wasn't well thought out.
Yeah.
It was like, even if the person, I remember one person in my family who was an addict, and everybody would let this person watch their kids. And as a teenager, I would be like, why would you let them watch your kids? It's like, well, that's their grandmother.
Yeah.
So, like, so what?
Yeah.
It's like they should not be over there.
Yeah, of course.
But it was like, I have no choice. It's the grandmother. That's the role. So grandmothers watch kids, even if they're not sober, even if they're not really watching the kid and the kid is being neglected in their care.
Of course.
So yeah, I think there is this idea that we have to go along with whatever is happening in a dysfunctional family, and you do not.
No.
You get to create your own protocol. You get to say that the grandmother who is, not sober doesn't watch her kid. You get to say that the parent who abused you doesn't get access to your kids in the same way. You get to say that your parents can't give your kids certain foods. Like, you are the person who decides what these relationships look like because you have a choice.
Yeah. It's such a powerful word, isn't it, in the therapy room?
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad that so many people, it takes a long time. And some people never realize that they can have a choice. Ever feel like your brain's stuck in slow mode? You're not the only one. That's why I want to introduce you to lion's mane and ginkgo from Higher Nature. This natural combo is designed to help lift the mental fog, supporting memory, focus, and overall clarity. Lion's mane helps fuel brain function, while ginkgo encourages healthy blood flow where it matters most. It's clean, it's effective, and it's rooted in science. Visit highernature.com and use code TALK25 for 25% off. TALK25 for 25% off. Running a private practice means juggling a lot. Scheduling, billing, documentation. It adds up really fast. Simple Practice helps you take the pressure off. It's a secure, all-in-one EHR that streamlines everything in one place so your practice can run smoother. Their new brilliant AI note taker saves so much time by transcribing and drafting your notes in seconds, all while staying fully HIPAA compliant. Use the link in the show notes to get 70% off your first 4 months, plus a free 30-day trial of Note Taker. What other factors do you feel contribute to people not talking about the problems? Because it's widespread, isn't it? As you said, all of those people that you said before, you'd never know, that doesn't have a look. What stops us? And another big question, how can we make steps to change that?
I think the thing that stops us is we aren't ready to act. And when we start talking about some of these issues, there is this fear that we have to do something about it. If I notice what the problem is, I have to work toward fixing the problem. I'm not ready to work on any of that stuff, so I need to ignore the problem.
I think you're really right there.
So if I ignore it, it doesn't exist. I don't need to talk about this stuff. I don't need to bring it up. I was talking to someone recently who had severe childhood trauma, and I was telling them about a program where they could go and work through some of this stuff. And they said, I'm not interested because I don't want to relive all of that stuff. And I said to them, your whole life has been an unconscious living of that stuff. The choices you make, the way you choose to raise your children, the relationships you have all been impacted by your childhood stuff. You're already living it without talking about it. You don't talk about it, but you fully live it out.
Yeah.
We could look at your life and say, oh, Here's the life of a person who had a troubled childhood. It's reflective.
Yeah. It's already happening.
It's already happening.
Yeah.
So not talking about it doesn't save you from the impact of what happened to you.
No, beautifully said. Beautifully said. It's incredibly sad, isn't it? It's incredibly sad to
Mhm.
witness, but it's incredibly hopeful when we see people being very brave in the work, in bringing it forward and working through it. And as I said that, I felt such pride for those people that are changing their lives when they perhaps thought they never could,
Mhm.
and bringing the unconscious to the conscious and making those changes and working through that. And as you say, boundaries, huge part of that, but they're not easy to set, are they? They're not easy. And
Mhm.
we have to go bit by bit, slow by slow. Let your system feel comfortable step by step. It's not a change overnight, is it?
Not at all. And I think that it can start today. It can be small steps towards a really big thing. And I think when we think about where we want to go, we look at it as so big. And it's really like all of these little steps you take to get to that place, but you have to start somewhere.
I love that. And actually, that leads me on to the question I wanted to ask before we move to the next part of the conversation was if someone's listening and this is resonating, because it can feel very impactful, can't it, when you're listening to this kind of conversation and it's resonating for someone. What's your go-to piece of advice that you would offer here if someone thinks that they'd like to start the work or this resonates and they think, yes, my family is dysfunctional and it's making an impact? What what advice would you give?
I think what could be really helpful is for that person to grab a pen and a notebook and just list ways that they think that they're impacted by their family.
Mm,
What did you experience and what do you want to do differently?
yeah.
I think sometimes writing is where we can be the most honest. Like things just come up and come out that we weren't even considering. If you want to make it a letter to yourself, if you want to make it a list, if you could just think about, if I think about my childhood, how was I impacted by my childhood? What am I considering to be dysfunctional? How is that still playing out in my life today?
Yeah, powerful, Nedra, really powerful. And you're so right about the written word because our thoughts, I was talking to a neuroscientist the other day, I think we only have about 6 or 7 words per thought. Once we start to write and connect with the unconscious, so much more comes up. And it can be
Mm.
so incredibly insightful, can't it, into that? I think it's a beautiful starting place. And then I suppose reaching out for help or safe environments or safe connections where you can as well. I really do. Nadja, thank you. I've loved this part of the conversation. I just wanted to move on now to, while we've got a few moments left towards the end, to the questions from my wonderful Instagram community. Sadly, I got hundreds of questions, which wonderful because I hope we can pick out a few for today, but it just gave me an insight into the impact that, and also the vast numbers of people that are sadly struggling with relationships from their early childhood through to adulthood. So, first one, how does one heal family dysfunction for the next generation of their family? Now, I had a huge amount of people ask that one, that people interested in wanting to do the work to stop those unhealthy patterns. But how does one start to do that?
For the next generation,
Yeah.
wow, that's a lot to take on. And I wonder if the healing starts with you.
Mm,
The only generation that you can be concerned with is the one that you are directly impacting. So how do you do something differently so that other people are not infected by you? I don't want to say affected, infected by you.
I love that. Go and tell me. I love that.
Yeah, I think we feel this need to like oh, I have to help all of these people, when helping ourselves, when working through ourselves is the example that other people need to see, because there's a lot that goes into how a person becomes themselves. It's their personality, it's their experiences, it's lots of things that we cannot control, but I can control how I show up with people.
Yeah.
I can control how I impact them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that recognition that you can be the change.
Mm-hmm.
And that ripple effect is wonderful, isn't it? The ripple effect out there to your children, and then how they show up in their world as a result of your work.
As a result of your work. Absolutely. So sometimes you doing the work is enough to change future generations.
Yeah.
It's not about what you can do with them, but what can you do with yourself? What is the internal work that you can do with yourself?
That sense of responsibility, agency, advocating for self. Brilliant, brilliant. They're sad questions, some of these. They really, well, all of them are sad, really. But how do I manage the pain and discomfort caused by paternal abandonment?
How do you manage the pain? Mm.
Mm,
The thing that I'm wondering here is, I hope that this person isn't trying to manage the pain with other people who can't actually feel the void. And sometimes we do that with relationships, right? Like if we have a father wound, we may meet a partner and hope that this person can do some of those. And we're not intentionally looking, but our unconscious motivation is, I need to find someone who can take care of me, who can protect me, who can, all of these fatherly things that we didn't have. They have to be able to do this. And if this person can't do it, I need to find another person, because my father wound needs to be repaired. And another human on this planet besides my father has to repair it. I would say that the best way to deal with the pain is to acknowledge that the person who can repair it isn't able to, doesn't want to, or they cannot do it.
mm,
It cannot be fulfilled by another person. There is no person who can fill that void. That void has to exist. And it might be painful. And it's also sometimes something that we have to live with. There are certain levels of grief that we have to live with and we can't do anything about. There is no making this person do it. There is no putting somebody else in that role. We have to grieve what that relationship was not for us. And we have to be able to live and move on, knowing that that's something that we have no control over repairing.
mm. Gosh, it was so true what you said there about can't change it. So that leaning in towards an acceptance of it is
Mm-hmm.
the only way that we can acknowledge the grief, acknowledge the emotion, name the grief, name the emotion, let it pass through you. It it's not going to go away as such, is it? You have to find a new way of living with that that feels healthier for you, safer for you. It's so true, so, so true. Beautiful answer. Thank you. How to this actually, this came up a lot. And actually, you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about dysfunction. How to deal with triangulation within a family and feeling that I'm so often the scapegoat.
Mm. Mm. I think I named it earlier as codependency. And when this is the case, the two people who are codependent, two, three, how many ever people are in that codependent situation, it's not anything for us to repair. And we have to figure out how to live on the outside of that.
Mm,
And that's a really hard position to be in, to be the person on the outside of that, but it may be something that you have to accept, that you can't change how they operate. You can only remove yourself.
mm, mm.
The other day, I was on the telephone and my daughter walked into the room and I said, I'm on the phone. And she just sat there. And I was like, why is she just sitting here? I just said I'm on the phone as a cue to like leave. So you know what I did? I got up and left. can't control whether she stays in the room. I'm on the phone. I thought that was enough to get her to be like, okay, I'll come back later. It wasn't. I can leave the room. You can lay here and stare at a wall. I'm out of here.
Yeah, I can go.
I'm on the phone.
I'm leaving.
I'm leaving. The only thing I can control in 99.9% of scenarios with other human beings is my role.
Yes. Yes.
These two can be codependent, they can triangulate. I'm not in it.
No, I know.
You can't triangulate me if I'm not in it.
I know.
Who are you gonna pull in as the third? I'm not here.
Exactly.
I had a situation like this in my family where, it was this situation going on. And I said to one person, I said, hey, I don't want to hear about this other person. I want to hear about it. And they would continue to try. And it's just like, hey, I literally won't talk about them with you because I don't want to be in it. Because then it'll be this thing of, well, this person said that. I'm not in it. So you can't even triangulate me because I'm saying the same thing to this other person. So I think both of you all understand, if you want me to be in it, I'm unwilling.
Yeah. Yeah.
I am not a participant in this little codependency thing that y'all have going on, where it's you tell on this person and I'm not in it anymore.
No, no.
So you two can be in it, but remove me from the triangle. Now you just have a line. It's a line to the two of you. It's no triangle.
The triangle has gone, and
The triangle is gone. Not in it.
and what you say there, and what your the way you describe that, I could really feel it. You take any power out of it, don't you? You take
Mm-hmm.
any energy out of it,
Mm-hmm.
and the freedom of not fighting that can be so healing in itself, can't it? No longer participating in that fight for it to change. Move away from it. Take yourself out of it.
And I think there is when I'm hearing from that question, there's a desire to control what people say about you. They're scapegoating me. We can't control what people say.
No.
I'm probably being talked about somewhere in the world right now, and probably not in a positive way. So are you, right? Like, I can't control what people say about me, even if it's my family members.
I know.
I do want to say this. I don't want to hear about it. So if you are calling me to tell me what another person said, that's where let me get off the phone. That's the part I can control. I can't control whether or not you talk about me or try to scapegoat me, but I don't have to listen to you do it.
Brilliant. Nedra, I'm loving your advice today. It's utterly wonderful. Thank you. How do I deal with a parent who still treats me like a child?
Mm. I wonder how you're inviting that treatment and why they still see you that way. Sometimes it's the parent. They just, they're like, oh my gosh, once my baby, always my baby, right? I have to, yeah. And then there are other times where we are not mature and our parent sees that and they're continuing to fill those gaps in.
Okay.
If neither of those things are true, I think it's worth a conversation. And again, it's worth you changing your behavior with them. So if it is an instance of your parents saying, come over here every Sunday, I made you dinner, or coming over to your house and cleaning up for you, or whatever things they're doing that you feel might be overbearing, you have to stop that behavior. When you come in my house, please don't clean anything. I want to cook for the holiday. You have to take the reins as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I wonder, how have you really stepped into the power of being an adult? Because sometimes we don't, because it's like, oh, this is how they want to treat me, and I just have to allow it until they decide they want to treat me like an adult. You have to start acting like an adult.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd imagine that, your parents, they have worked in the world, they've worked with people your age. They may not have been treating the people your age like children. You know why? Because they were acting like adults. They had equal roles. How do I make this relationship more equal? What am I doing to minimize their vision of me being an adult?
Yeah. Yeah. What part?
We might be doing, yeah, what part am I contributing to? If I'm contributing to nothing,
Yes.
I need to have some very strong conversations and change my behavior.
Brilliant, brilliant. And that real stepping into adult self. And I know that the work I do, I often work with clients about remembering or coming back to adult self and literally placing a hand on your heart here and just reminding yourself of your age, the year it is, you're not 8. Just that can be incredibly empowering in the moment. Kind of, hang on, I'm an adult,
Yeah.
and just almost naming the adult state you're in and how the roles you play identify you as an adult can be incredibly helpful.
And I think you have to be willing to confront those things. Like if you have a parent who says, "Hey, you didn't call me yesterday," you may want to remind them, "Hey, I don't have to initiate calls with you every day."
Yeah, yeah.
Like that's being an adult. Like you don't have to call your parents every day. You could if you choose to,
Yes.
if you have that type of relationship with your parent, but overbearing parents typically push their kids away. So it's not like, oh, the more that they smother me, the closer I want to be. It's actually the opposite.
No, I know. I know. And actually, there was another question someone asked around emotional enmeshment, and
Mm.
saying that, the mother would call 4 or 5 times and they wouldn't pick up, and then they'd keep calling and texting, and that, why aren't you answering my calls? And that's really difficult to manage as well. But it's, as you say, same thing, coming back into adult self, and actually, I don't have to.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not a part of this cycle with you. I don't have to.
Walking out the room
Walking out of the room.
with the
Yeah,
phone gone.
yeah, like I'm not answering.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out another enmeshment partner, or sometimes it's worth saying to our parents what we're noticing. I'm noticing that you're calling me when you have these things going on. Are there other people for you to talk to? What about your friend so and so? Have you thought about going to therapy? What about dad? Have you called? There are other people in your life, I hope.
Yeah.
And if not, that's a problem for them to fix.
Yes.
That's still not your problem.
I love the way you put that onus of responsibility on them. That's not your problem to fix. And
Mm-hmm.
about all of us individually having agency for ourselves. And that can be the parents in the dynamic as well, having agency for their behaviors and how they show up. You can't do that work for them.
Yeah, you can't. And I think most of our issues with our families is we're trying to do their work.
Yeah.
The first question was even, how do I do the work of the people in the future? Right? Like, I want to impact generations. It's like, how can I do the work for the people in the future? And it's like, you can only do your work, and your work is enough to do.
Yes, yes.
You have enough work to do. And if you think you're done with your work, talk to me. I'll show you some more work. It's like, oh, you know what? You think you're done? This is a new thing you need to work on. Like, you have enough work to do. Me trying to be on time to places, also patient. That's 80% of my work. Like, I can't do nobody else's work. That's why I can't clean up the shirts off my kids' floor. I'm trying to be patient, and I'm trying to be on time to stuff. So
It's just brilliant. I've still got to work on that.
I still have to work on that. That's a 100% job for me.
Of course it is. Oh, Nedra, I could talk to you for hours. I have loved this conversation so much. I love the vulnerability you bring, the realness you bring, the honesty, and also your humanness, but also the therapeutic insights. I've just loved this conversation, and I know,
Thank you so much.
I just know that my listeners will get so much from it. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much if you could follow the show, leave a quick rating, and maybe even a review to let others know what you think and whether they may enjoy the conversation too. Your support genuinely means so much. Thank you. Enjoy your day.